We got hards on. We're going to the end.
Lando Norris, you are world champion. Oh, sorry. Hopefully I wasn't too loud. It's been a couple weeks. You know, it got a bit stressful. I got a little bit tense. What really happened is, I think not last weekend, weekend before, but one before Qatar, Vegas. That was a great episode. Recorded it, spoke about Vegas. Congratulations, Lando Norris. By the way, obviously we're happy over here. This is Lando Norris country. We bleed papaya over it. Well, we bleed Norris over here. Papaya. We bleed papaya. But that wanes, you know, with Lando Norris being in papaya or not. But you know, we bleed papaya here. And but yeah, no, I did do a podcast for Vegas, but listen to it back, no audio, and I just didn't want to record it again simply because it was a very like in the weeds kind of podcast. A lot of good shit happened. There was like great quotes. I felt like there was a Verstappen thing. There was a Stroll thing. Like people were just saying crazy shit in interviews. Like Stroll was chatting shit about Colapinto. He said something along the lines of he should just focus on trying to get a single point in his fucking life. And then obviously that was the week where just before Piastri had like reposted the thing about Lando Norris, about how the team favors him and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is like fucking jackpot. No audio. Hopefully this won't be the same. And then Qatar, it just got really close coming into Qatar. I knew it wouldn't be settled by Qatar. I feel like I made that clear in the episodes I did. I was just kind of like, there's always a sting in Formula One's tower, and Formula One is always, if it can be, going into the final thing, it's going to have, and when I say always, I mean, well, it happened that time with Hamilton, so I guess it always happens. But I was just thinking it's never going to be that easy. He's not, even though he had like a 20-something point lead, a 25-point lead at one point, he was never going to win it before the final race, which meant the final race was always going to be the tensest thing in the world, because even if you're 25 points ahead, you know, all it takes is a DNF, and that's the scariest shit ever. So like, I knew it'd come into the final race. It just got a bit tense. And I was just like, fuck it. After Qatar, which wasn't the most... Was it? Oh, Qatar was boring, man. Qatar was boring. And I was pissed. I was half pissed, I'll be honest, because, like, it was, like, at the detriment of Norris. But also just, like, these are the kind of tracks that just piss me off. In my head, Qatar's fun. It's, like, a high-speed track. It's cool. But I guess not. I guess my memory fails me because it's one of them tracks where it's just, like, qualifying matters. And for that to be a track second to last of the season, that sucks. But like, also, I'll be honest, I'll hold my hands up. A lot of that hatred is because Lando fluffed it a little in qualifying. He didn't get to set a final time, and it was that really reminded me of like the earlier parts of the season where not only was Piastri better, but it was like Norris would make these kind of mistakes. It was like, come on, man, lock in. Like, fair enough if Piastri beats you in qualifying and he's ahead, but it's the way in which he did it. It was the fact he didn't even set a final time or whatever. And then, you know, but unlike, I'm always fair, you know, and I've done this in other races. I'll go, it's all well and good to complain about the race and the track and to like the team fucked it at Qatar from what I remember. Like they just had them on the shit strategy. They was the only ones who didn't come in. They fucked it, right? And it especially fucked Lando because because they had to pit him later, but because of that, they dropped him out and he had to try and fight back. And then he only got 4, he didn't get the point. You know, all this other stuff, he lost out more so than Piastri did, but they both lost out. Yeah, that is true, but it's also like, well, qualify ahead of Piastri though, and you wouldn't have got extra fucked. You know, I'm always the person to go, that's true, that did happen. But ultimately, if you put it on pole, none of this would have mattered anyway. If you got a better start and you didn't get jumped on the start by Russell, whoever got him on the start, this wouldn't have happened anyway. So I'm always going to be like that. And I just thought it's a bit too tense. I'm just going to wait. I just want to wait till things are all said and done and then look across the season. I'll also do another episode after this because I did make predictions at the beginning of the season. And I remember a couple things I said in my predictions. And I remember a couple things, well, I don't remember a couple things as well. So that could actually be some embarrassing stuff in there. But that'll be its own episode. But just like, oh man, now we've got all that bullshit out of the way. Fucking Abu Dhabi. He won here last year. He needed to be on the podium for a definite win. Otherwise, he just needed like, and that's if Verstappen or Piastri won the race. I think he had to be on the podium, right? Just be on the podium. It's in your hands as long as you're in the podium, right? And as soon as I heard that, I knew either Lando isn't going to be world champion, or he is going to be world champion, but he's going to be third. Like I kind of thought in my head, I believe he's going to be champ. Either he's not going to be or he is, but if he is, it's going to be him getting third. Like I was like, he's not going to win the race. He's gonna get it like by doing what he needs to do, and he's gonna, and then that's lo and behold, that's how it happened, you know. Um, and it was tense. It was tense. I mean, we all watched it. It wasn't the most exciting race. It was exciting because of like the repercussions of the race, because of where we are in the season, and like because what all this means. The actual race was probably dead boy. Like, if this was a normal race, like race week 3 or something, and like we don't know the importance of everything yet. It's just like, oh, okay, that happened. But because we know, like, oh, this means this, and there's like people got this skin in the game, and these radios, and this team trying to like, you know, weave into not like Lando through and like, you know, almost slowing down and being like, come on, guys, get in my DRS to let the other boys through. That makes it so much more interesting. But just, yeah, there was one thing I was like, obviously you want to win the final race. It's nice to win the final race, to cross the line, to be the winner, to be on the top step of the podium when you're actually the top step of the entire season. But I knew that as long as he didn't DNF and nothing like drastic happened, like he would win, because probably they would have like slowed down Piastri and been like, Piastri, you're not winning anyway. So just like slow down and that Norris can overtake you. Even if Leclerc got him, they probably would have just done that anyway. And it would have meant that Leclerc would have got to inherit a P2 or whatever. But like, that would have kept... But fuck that. Because even though I would have taken that in the moment, if it happened, I would have been like, oh, fuck it. Okay, sure. It would have sucked to like won a championship in that way. And even though you came back from like 34 points down, you was very consistent from when was it, like Zandvoort or Monza or something, and just like being better than your teammate, and you put in some great performances this season. You had some big wins, and you know, we had to deal with a DNF, with the engine failure or whatever, and all this stuff. Even though that all happened, it ended by at the end of the season, your teammate intentionally had to slow down and let you go ahead after he got you on the start. Like, it just doesn't feel good, doesn't look good. And it's like, you know how Piastri won his first race, but the conditions were just like, ugh, it wasn't nice. You know, it was like, okay, they had to have that whole back and forth with Norris, slowed down. You know, we know this isn't who you are. You know, like, come on, what goes around comes around. And what goes around really does come back around. You know, like if he had won it that way, you know, and I think he still would have slowed down. But like, imagine Norris never gave him that victory back for his first ever win. And then you need him now to win the championship, like literally in a very like, you know, actual way, you know, in him physically slowing and letting you go past. You know, he doesn't need to do that, but you just do it because there's nothing for him to lose there and whatever. But he gets the third place. He gets jumped on the start. I mean, in qualifying, he qualifies ahead of Piastri behind Verstappen. And yeah, he gets the job done. He's emotional on the radio. And you could tell it was just an exhale, you know. So much of these races he's been winning. And like, since he's had that 34, that it feels like ages ago, where we were in the season at a point where I was like, he needs to start catching Piastri. He's just getting further and further behind. It feels like Piastri was just untouchable in qualifying at a point. He's looking to overtake him in Canada, drives into the back of him a little, misjudges it, goes out. You know, in obviously Zandvoort, the car just dies on him. He misses out on, was that 25 points that weekend? I think Piastri won that weekend. The pictures of him sitting in the grass, you know, mirrors the F2 days where he span out on that track. You know, he's sitting in the gravel, and you know, that kind of wrecked his championship. He didn't win F2, you know. But the thing about F2 is, I think actually in F2, not only did George Russell have more wins than him, so did Alex Albon. I think actually in F2, at least in the feature race, maybe in feature and sprint, because I remember doing this for an episode. I can't remember why I was looking for all these stuff, but I was surprised to find out that Norris, I think, this was like over a year ago I looked at this, so maybe this is wrong, but only had one win or something, or two wins. Like, he only had like a very few amount of wins. Might have been one win that whole season, but he had like the most P2s or whatever, and that's what got him to being second in that season. He lost obviously to Russell. And like, that's kind of what I was thinking about for this season. You might not get the most race wins, you might not, but he's just consistently been on that podium. And even in times where he lost to Piastri, I guess, and it all felt like the end of the world, where he was fourth and Piastri was second, or Piastri was first and he was third or second. In reality, you know, he got the most podiums this season. He lost out on wins to Verstappen by 1, but he got the most podiums. Did he get more wins? We can look this stuff up. But like, it was just close. You know, it was close, and like that consistency, which didn't feel there. Maybe that was just because I was like so in the dumps about it at the time, where I just didn't quite see. It felt way worse than it was at the time. But like you just gotta remember where we was, man. To now be in this position, it's crazy. I mean, and it's a lot of great stats to have on you as well. And we're going into a new season. There's no DRS. The cars are smaller. Like we don't even fucking know. Like the regulations feel like the most different because every year, especially because I got into this sport through Drive to Survive, every year you'll have Will Buxton sit there and he'll try and convince you that this season is not like any other. This season is not like any other. The cars, the regulations are completely different this year. We truly, for the first time in a very long time, have no idea who's going to win until they get to Catalonia and everyone pulls their trousers down. Well, this is a Christian Horner quote now, which is the most popular. I was like, I'm quoting not Jay Kelly. Jay Kelly's on the mind if for my movie fans out there just watched that the other day. R. Kelly. Very different people. Jay Kelly's fictional, but very different people. And yeah, to quote, Christian Horner famously said, I feel like in season 1 of Drive to Survive, Catalonia is that time where I sound like Alex Jakes right now. This is the wrong accent, but everyone pulls their trousers down and you see what everyone's really working with. It's like it's not quite that. It's ever really felt like that big dramaticness. But going into next year is the biggest time I actually do feel like since watching this sport, which is I feel like the first season I started was just after, it was halfway, the second half of the COVID season. And, it feels like so different in a way that like, who knows, Ferrari could finally be good again in a way where like more dramatically, what if like Audi are the best team? What if fucking Haas are the best team? Like it just feels so different, and it probably won't be. It probably will still be Red Bull and McLaren and Mercedes. But just the unknown is kind of crazy, but also scary in a sense. So I was like, Piastri is only getting better. The regulations are getting completely different. I'm not saying I have no belief in Lando and that he can't be a multi-world champion or whatever, but just a bit of nervousness in the fact that like McLaren have not won a drivers' championship since what was it, 2008, 2009, something like that, 2007. When was the last one? I don't know. Was it Hamilton who won it? Fucking hell. And for it to be won, their returning driver championship to be won by Lando, who was there since he was like 19, and he's been with the team and he stayed with the team. And there was talks about him leaving maybe after like they had a season or two where they dipped a little bit after having a trajectory that just was this, at a little dip. And there was speaks about, oh, would you go Red Bull and this and that? And he's always beaten his teammate in qualifying. He lost the first 2 seasons to Sainz in terms of just like points, but just consistently getting better to the point where he's the number one. They defeated Ricciardo after. I mean, at the time when Ricciardo stepped in, everyone was predicting Ricciardo would be better than him. Piastri comes through the door, beat Piastri comfortably in the first 2 seasons. This is the 3rd season, right? Or is this the 2nd season? I don't remember, but like beats him on points just, and keeps his flawless qualifying, and it just feels good for. It's just a nice full circle moment. And it was like, it's not easy to win a driver championship, right? Weren't they saying only 35 people can say that they have? And it's like, don't take for granted that just because you won 1, more on their way. I mean, 4 came in a row for Max, like 6 came in a row for Lewis. But like, there are great drivers. Some drivers, that people would rate a lot higher than Lando. Lando's got a decent amount of haters, even though the commentators always act like he's the most loved driver in the world. He's got a lot of fans, got a lot of not fans, right? But like Raikkonen, he's only got 1, right? Rosberg, he's only got 1. Button's only got 1, right? So like, there's a lot of good drivers who just got 1. It's not easy. When you're in a sport where regulations are constantly changing, your position in the teams, your teammates are constantly changing, and he's got a very competitive teammate. There was a quote where Max had said like, if I was in that McLaren, I would have fucking walked it, and this and that. It was something to do with that. I mean, Red Bull and Max have said that a decent amount of times. And Lando said, well, Max is obviously the best. He's won 4 in a row. He's got the luxury and he's allowed to say things like that. But at the same time, most of his recent teammates have been like not rookies, but promoted rookies, people from the academy, people stepping in. Oh, you give it a shot, you give it a shot. He's like fucking king of the court. We're just chucking in like rooks to see if they can take him down, just like chucking people into the fucking Thunderdome, into the Gladiator Chamber, seeing if they can take down Max. And it's like, I'm up here with fucking Oscar Piastri, and it's like, until you see Max with, someone who we just know how good they are, like with a Leclerc, with a Piastri, with a Russell, it's difficult to say, because it's just simply because, yes, Max won the most races this season, but if he had like a semi-competitive teammate, just on the level of competitiveness that Bottas was to Hamilton even, then like one of those, maybe two of those, when Red Bull were the most competitive, could have been taken by the other Red Bull car. But it's always that if Red Bull are good, then it's all going to be coming into Max, and that's partly because of his own brilliance and partly because his teammates or whatever. So there's that. Sorry about this clickety clackety noise in the background, by the way. My dog does this when I do this, and it's annoying. But yeah, man, I'm just loving it. It just feels good. Like I was envisioning all the graphics, Lando Norris world champion, all the pictures. It was all good. And you know what? What else felt good? Like I said, I started watching this second half of the season of COVID, and I always enjoyed Formula One. But like, and football is still my favorite sport. It's always going to be my favorite sport. But I was just wondering, will Formula One ever get to a level similar to football where I feel completely emotionally invested at a point? Because there were seasons like I wanted Lewis to beat Max so badly that season, and that was crushing, and especially in the way in which it happened. And that's what makes me so scared even now, that there's always going to be a final sting, a final twist in the tail. But like, will I ever properly be emotionally invested? And it's like, throughout this season, multiple times on the formation lap, I've had butterflies in my stomach. I've been nervous. I've been farting up the place, and I felt that, and it felt good to be that nervous, watching a sport. And I've got to that place now, Formula One, and I even felt emotional. I didn't weep, okay, but I felt emotional when he's on the radio, and I was finally that exhale. It was so tense, where all his radios were just kind of like, yeah, on to the next team. Driving a good car, it's just like, let's just get to the end of the fucking thing, and then you can just fucking breathe and let it out. And like, yeah, it feels good now. Like, I feel comfortable in a sense where like I will happily go into next season and anything can happen. And I like Oscar Piastri, and it's been hard to root against him, and in some ways irrationally hate him, and see a lot of hate for him online from just like the Oscar side of it all. For just bullshit stuff, much ado about nothing stuff, reading into little things you say in interviews and this and that. But I do like Oscar Piastri, and I'd happily see him win a driver championship or whatever. Not that I want him to beat Lando next season. I still want Lando to beat Piastri, but just like, I really could not even give Piastri anything or any kind of love or affection, because I just needed it for Lando so badly. I'm just happy that happened. And it feels great. It feels great. I was nervous as fuck seeing like the multiple times in this race throughout different phases where it felt like Leclerc was catching him there. And to be honest, I feel like there was a world in which Lando could have caught Oscar towards the end, but it was like, just bring it home. Like, now is not the time. Like, bring it home. And I feel like on the last lap, he really did like take his foot off the pedal a little bit, and just like drive it like a formation lap and just bring it home. And it's just amazing. Lando Norris world champion. Feels good because, I got into watching the sport through the driver first. I feel like I saw his Twitch streams or like clips and stuff, and I was watching him more as like a content kind of creator, and I just thought, oh, this is interesting. It was like bleeding into my life and just some stuff I was watching here and there. I was like, oh, this is interesting, because Formula One before that was just a sport I had zero interest in. It just seemed boring. I never gave it any time. I never even looked over it, but just the idea of it probably came up on my TV once in my entire life for like 12 seconds, and I promptly turned it off. It's just going around, and you look up at the time, and it's like, this is lap 14, there's 70 fucking laps, and it just seems like the most boring thing ever. But then I got into the sport because there was already an in there was a personality, there was someone to back. All of a sudden that makes things more entertaining. Now you got a horse in the race, so I kind of like this Lando guy. I'll watch the sport. I think I watched the sport. He had just got his first podium. I think I saw him on a podcast. He was talking about it. He's got his first podium in Austria. I start watching the sport. I don't start watching it, I think I go to Drive to Survive. I'm like, okay, I just happened to see it on Netflix. It wasn't recommended or anything. That was 2 seasons out at the time. I'm watching that. I think he appears at the end of season 1 or was the end of season 2. It was like a fucking Marvel end credit scene. Like Samuel L. Jackson calling up the next fucking young Avenger or whatever. He comes up the lift. I'm backing the people. I'm watching Hulkenberg fail in the rain. Or was it even raining? I think it might have been a wet track to get his first ever podium. Oh, heartbreak. Like, I didn't know what had happened yet in these Formula One races. It was just like, it was also exciting. And like, oh my God, no, like I didn't understand. Like Daniel Ricciardo taking the next big jump as he jumps off the cliff. Like, will he be a world champion? I'm rooting for him. Like, I don't know out of context of anything happening yet. I'm finding out for the first time, like that the cars aren't the same speed, that they're different in quickness. I'm like, what the fuck? That just sounds crazy. The drivers are like on each other's team, but they're also against each other. Just so many little things that now are just like, yeah, that just comes with the territory. You're finding out for the first time whilst watching this like docu series, and you're like, what the fuck? This is completely backwards to every other sport I've ever watched or known in my life. And then through watching it more, watching the back half of that F1 season, I mean, I was always going to be into it because the back half of that F1 season was Lewis Hamilton just winning. I didn't join the sport with it being an entertaining, fun time. It was like, okay, this guy's just winning, but it was exciting still because I had a horse to back. And that makes the sport so much more exciting. It's why tennis sometimes, I'm like, ugh, it feels kind of just like, a bit one note. It's back and forth, it's back and forth. And unless there's a big personality or a tennis player you really, really like, then it's kind of hard to watch it just sort of, apathetically, not supporting anyone, just for the love of the game. And through watching that, being kind of just a midfield team, to be in a midfield team that can actually punch for podiums, get a couple wins, home victories, and then be in a place where in that season, last season, where it's like, okay, a driver's championship could actually be on the cards here, to stepping into this season where he's one of the favorites, and then to actually win it, just having that whole curve, just like, I don't know who I'm going to back. And I didn't back him because I liked him as a driver and like, oh my God, he's got great racecraft, or I love his fucking 1 lap pace. You know what I mean? It was just like, oh, this is just a personality I've seen and a way through into the sport. This is going to be the guy I back, for better or for worse, whether he's good or bad, and just watch the come up. He's an English driver as well. That helps. Just having, it was always going to be like another English driver I was going to like, and a young guy to watch throughout his career, because obviously joining Lewis has always been someone I know, but I've never watched the sport. I'm not going to like choose a guy who's already had his career kind of thing. And then now here we are. I'm saying this like I've been there fucking on the racetrack with the stopwatch. Like, we made it together, boy. But I'm just saying, like, it feels good. Like, I didn't go out glory hunting. I just stepped in. And, your team's won. Your team's won. West Ham win the Conference League. That must feel great for them. Tottenham, fuck them. But, they won the Europa or whatever. When your team gets that win or whatever, and it wasn't something you planned for, it just feels great. I felt that. Chelsea winning the Champions League twice in my lifetime. Beautiful stuff, beautiful scenes, Premier League, FA Cups. I mean, we've won it all famously. But yeah, it's great things there. That was a big old tangent just because, Lando's the guy. It's been difficult this season. We've been a laughing stock at points this season. And it's been tricky to show face. And sometimes, let's be honest, I haven't shown face. I've hid. But, I've still been watching and backing, even when I've had harsh words for him. Because that's what you got to do in sport. You got to back your horse, and we'll see what happens next season. I'll be back. I'll be talking about my predictions I had for this season. We'll be reviewing them. We'll be counting up the tally to see how well I did. Maybe a little comparisons compared to how other people did. And yeah, but Lando Norris is world champion. We got hards on. Oh, yes, we do.